When I called down there about the dog, their car wasn't there. I don't know.
Maybe extra heavy.
And
So you
so,
said, so that was quick, nobody was home.
She said that, sometimes she has to talk really loud because Sean is hard of hearing.
Guess what?
She has to talk really
That's
loud.
right.
Yeah.
So Sean is hard of hearing, and she doesn't shout at me. He
Spin it positive.
I said, oh, well, I wonder something.
I remember hearing my parents say, I don't know about these young
Mike
people.
said it's biting. So they're
Now
all,
I'm over them.
I suppose.
yeah. He says, I hear every word they say. He says, they do not get along. And, well, everybody has problems from time to time.
Yes, they do.
Amen.
Well, if you folks don't mind, I think we can begin. Tonight I want to discuss with our illustrious people here a deeper understanding of who Jesus really was and is. Because I have discovered that Christians tend to ignore what the Gospels really say about Jesus because Christians spend very little time in the Gospels. And what you think about Jesus influences how you feel about the entire Christian life and how you apply it in your life. And you take, for example, I discovered that ministers, when they preach the cross, tend to preach it in a way that make people feel sorry for Jesus. But the truth is, the cross is supposed to make us feel grateful. And I remember the power of that. When I was in college, in the British system of education, no matter what you plan to take your degree in, you had to pass an exam in Latin. And there was a man there in his 40s who wanted to go to the university, and nobody would help him with his Latin. And somebody said to him one day, there's a fellow on the campus called Wiggins, I think he can help me with Latin. So he came. He had 9 months to study for it. And I said to him, can you study? And he said, yes. So okay, in that case, you'll not only pass, you'll pass with we call it a distinction, that means an A. So he came and I studied with him and he got an A. And I charged him and so on. But every week he came to the campus saying to me, Mr. Wiggins, is there something I can do for you? And I would say, but you paid me. Yes, but what you did for me, is there something I can do for you? And I think when people recognize what Jesus did for them, that's the way they feel about Jesus. Jesus, is there anything I can do for you? So let's take a deeper look at this Jesus tonight and see. And it's all going to come from Mark chapter 6.
Verse.
Yes. Well,
Chapter 6.
you know me, I like my question answer format. So my question is, what was different about the sermons that Jesus preached? Chapter 6, verses 1 and 2. So go ahead, Eddie.
Jesus left there and went to his hometown, accompanied by his disciples. He began to teach in the synagogue, and many who heard him were amazed. Where did this man get these things? They asked. What's this wisdom that has been given to him? What are these remarkable miracles he is performing?
That's right. So, two things about the sermon. First of all, the wisdom that he preached amazed people. Now, the Greek word for wisdom here is Sophia, which really means knowledge that produces outstanding results. So he was preaching something that had miraculous results. It amazed people. Remember that at this point, they did not know who he was. In their minds, he was just an itinerant preacher. But those sermons, man, we never heard anything like this in our lives. However, what made certain people reject those teachings? Look at verse 3. Okay, Doc, you see that?
Yes,
Chapter what?
Right here, same thing, Mark 6.
you want me to do it? Oh, okay.
I think it was called that.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, you want me to read it?
Yes.
Isn't this the carpenter? Isn't this Mary's son and the brother of James, Joseph, Judas, and Simon? Aren't his sisters here with us? And they took offense at him.
Ooh, see? They took offense at Jesus because they said, well, wait a minute, we know him. We know his sisters, we know his mother, we know his father.
Right.
Who does he think he is? Now that's an interesting thing because here's what really happens. Psychological research shows that human beings tend to think in terms of in-group and out-group. This is our group, that's their group, and we are not the same. On the other hand, once you belong to the group, in order to be outstanding, you have to stand out. And the group very often does not like that. See? And so they say, oh, this fella, man, we know him. Why is he trying to be different from than we are? I remember now. See me look back at this and say, why? Is that the way they responded to Jesus? But they didn't know him the way we know him as Jesus. They just thought he was one of them, suddenly becoming outstanding. Well, how did Jesus explain it? And what were the results? Verses 4 to 6. Paul, you do it for us?
Then Jesus said to them, a prophet is not without honor except in his hometown, and among his relatives, and in his own house. He was not able to do a miracle there, except to lay his hands on a few sick people and heal them.
6.
Oh. And he was amazed because of their unbelief.
Yes.
Then he went around among the village and taught.
Yeah, okay, now what should it be? Three things there actually that are important. Jesus explained why they did not accept him. He said a prophet has no honor in his own country, about his own people. Again, that psychological thing of, you're one of us, so how come you're so outstanding? We don't like that. Because if you're up there, that means we're down here. Yeah. Now, that's interesting because for some reason, I had the opposite effect and experience. My homeland was extremely accepting and even honoring of me. And I've been trying to discover what was the psychology of that. I went home to conduct a few night meetings, and there was a big convention, and they voted me 3 jobs for me to leave the United States and come back to Barbados on that. As I examine it though, it has to do with culture. In the British culture, they're like a hero. And there are 2 things that create hero in their mind. If you're bright if you're bright, they put you up on a pedestal. And if you do things that other people thought could not be done, it's a double whammy. And that's exactly what happened in my case. And so the culture determines how people respond to you. All cultures have values that they respect. And if you belong to the culture and live in it all the time, you don't quite realize how powerful it is. Culture is to human beings what water is to fish. Fish do not know their water. But if you take them out, they'll never, wait a minute. So for example, in Barbados where I was born, the highest value was respect. So when people went crazy, they became people in their minds that others respected. So most crazy people in the Caribbean were either Jesus or Napoleon. I was always amazed at that. Hey.
A little French influence.
In fact, one time a woman in Barbados said she was Mary, Jesus' mother. So I called another church member and told the church member to come to a session with her and claim to be Mary. So now I had two Marys in the room. But the crazy one couldn't understand that. How could there be two Marys? I know I'm Mary. So how could she be Mary? And I said, well, you know, the truth is I recognize her as Mary. I don't recognize you as Mary. And she got better. Now, in the United States, the most important value is honesty. Americans value honesty so much that if you commit a crime and lie about it, you get a deeper or a longer sentence than if you told the truth about it. Now, in other countries, they expect you to lie if you get caught. You see what I mean? That is such a big thing here. For example, Americans do not call adultery, they call adultery cheating. Yes. So your culture has these values that control a lot of your behaviors and what you accept and what you're not willing to accept. Well, these folks said, we don't like Jesus. He's working miracles. We don't like him. Imagine saying, we don't like him because he's healing the sick. Yeah. But Jesus had not gone to their seminaries. You know.
It's kind of like the government here. I don't mean to, it doesn't make the money for you to be sick, but for you to be well.
Yeah.
It makes the money for you to be sick.
Yeah.
And, you know, so the way I look at it is Jesus was healing the sick, but they didn't like it because he didn't get paid. They didn't get paid money for what he was
Yes.
doing.
As a matter of fact, you know, I was chaplain in 2 hospitals in Austin a number of years ago. And after being there for 3 months, the one that was the Catholic hospital called me in the office and said to me, Dr. Liggins, since you came here, we've been losing money. Be patient, I get it better too fast.
Yeah.
And so, yes, you're up against an economic situation.
And they didn't want him turning the people into Christianity, right? They wanted him to, and he was doing that, and they didn't like that.
Yes. Yes. Now, this same thing about respect and respectability makes people from my country very prejudiced against certain institutions. For example, I had a professor, if you didn't get a degree from the school he got his from, as far as he was concerned, you didn't get any degree. You know, I met him a few years ago. He eventually got his doctorate from Harvard. He told me he went to a university and he saw the president and said to him, "My name is Dr. Simmons, Harvard." Then he said to me, "I didn't want to ask him where he got his." When I was working on my Bachelor of Theology degree in Jamaica, same professor came through there and saw me, and he said to me, "There's a rumor in New York that you're here teaching the professors Greek." So I said, "Well, that's partially true. But I found myself studying a lot of history. There's a professor here that I like very much." So he said to me, where did he get his degree?" I said, "At American University." He said, "In Washington?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Oh, if they gave me a degree from that place, I would not take it." But I said to him, "Go and talk to him. I think you'll change your mind." So he spoke to me, came back and said to me, "Where did you say he got his degree? He's a solid man." But just because it was that particular university, he thought it was no good. You had to come from Harvard or Yale or Princeton or Northwestern. He told me that when he was at Northwestern, he went to a dentist, and the dentist treated him very perfunctorily, he said. But he noticed the dentist had a degree from Northwestern. So he went back to the dorm and put on the Northwestern blazer and came back. And he said, "Dennis began to treat me very well." And I said to him, wait a minute. This does not add to me, I add to this." Well, that came from the culture he grew up in. Then, Jesus did something that I think people did not, but people do not these days give him credit for. Because Jesus chose to use in his service very sinful people. Look at verses 7 to 11.
I knew you was getting wet. Okay. Then Jesus went around, teaching from village to village, calling the 12 to him. He began to send them out 2 by 2 and gave them authority over pure spirits. These were his instructions. Take nothing for the journey except a staff, no bread, no bag, no money in your belts, but not an extra shirt. Whenever you enter a house, stay there until you leave that town. And if any place will not welcome you or listen to you, leave that place and shake the dust off your feet as a testimony against them.
That's right. Now notice here, he gave the 12 disciples authority over evil spirits. Judas was among them. Jesus knew that Judas was going to betray him, but he still gave him power over evil spirits. You don't have to be perfect for God to use you. In fact, they're not perfect people. I tell people who try to be perfect, there's only one perfect person, and they crucified him, so be careful.
That's right. That's right.
But yes, Jesus gave Judas the same power he gave Peter, James, John, and all the others. And they came back rejoicing with a good report. And the demons were subject to them, and people got healed, and so on. I have met many Christians who felt they were not worthy for God to use them. But that's not the way Jesus felt. Jesus will use anybody who is willing to be used. Yeah. See, Dr. Mike began to wonder at one point, am I worthy to take over this church? I said, you know, my degree's in medicine, not in theology. So God puts his hand on you, all that is irrelevant. Yeah. You know, we talk about Judas, but we forget Peter. Peter was so impetuous, and Jesus knew that. So when Jesus said, I'm going to Jerusalem to die, Peter said, okay, if that's the case, I'll go and die with you. Jesus said, really? Before the cock crows, you're going to deny me 3 times. And he did. But resurrection morning, Jesus said to Mary, go and tell the disciples and Peter. Now, he didn't have to say and Peter. Peter was a disciple. But he wanted Peter to know it was all right. And that Peter became the head of the church. In fact, I pointed out to church members once that every time in the Gospels they mention the names of the apostles, they mention Peter's name first. The one who denied Jesus. So, Paul, when he did pastoral work and the members were not behaving the way he thought they ought to behave, it had nothing to do with God's call in your life.
That's right. That is right.
That's right. God is a nice God. Yeah. And Jesus was a very accepting person. Jesus did not believe in rejecting people. And acceptance is a very powerful thing. Nicodemus, for example, was a publican. Now, people don't quite realize how the Jews hated publicans, because publicans collected taxes on behalf of Rome, but they would double the tax and keep half and give half to the Romans. And so the Jews thought of them as the lowest of society. So much so, if a publican touched them, they would go home and bathe and wash their clothes. They hated publicans. And for a Jew, the most important sign of welcome and acceptance is to invite you to his house for a meal. And Nicodemus was at the tree looking for Jesus, and Jesus said, Nicodemus, come down here, I plan to eat at your house today. Nicodemus came down and said, everything I stole I'm going to give back. Jesus did not say a word about that. But because he felt accepted, he got converted. That story has been a very important one in my life for a long, long time, and I have seen it work miracles. Now, most evangelicals think that all homosexuals are homosexuals because they chose to be. The truth is there are three kinds of homosexuals. They're the ones who were seduced. There's a time in your life, just before puberty, where you don't like the opposite sex. If you get into a homosexual relationship, then you get totally confused. They can be healed. There are those who are born that way. You can't heal them. But I have found the ones who were seduced need acceptance. If you keep condemning them, they remain hooked. So I had a workshop once for real estate agents in Rutherford. And for some reason, even when I conduct business things, people pick up that I'm a minister. And so he said to me, this man, he said, I want to talk to you. So he came to my house and he said to me, I have been struggling with homosexuality now as an adult. I even got married to try to overcome it because the church said I would go to hell if I'm homosexual. But it isn't working. So I said to him, when did you begin to think you're homosexual? He said, ever since my uncle abused me. I said, come here. And I hugged him. He told me he never had a homosexual temptation after that.
Acceptance.
My hugging him made him feel accepted.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's the way Jesus was. He accepted people. And his acceptance changed them.
We have I don't mean to be, we have a girl in our office, and, she's, she just graduated MA school. And her name is Quintessa, but we call her Quinn for short. And I told her, it reminds me of a queen's name, She was living out of her car. She came to our office, and she's not easily accepted there. But she can quote the Bible from, all the scriptures. And she said, if I didn't have my church and I didn't have my Lord and Savior to help me through everything I've been through, and she is at a very young age. She didn't have anyone, she volunteered to drive me. Nobody else volunteered to drive me because, I wasn't supposed to drive. And I looked at it as a blessing because she had no one she could talk to. No one, not even her family. And she told me her background at age 2 years old. Now, he knows what it is because I told him I do. And I promised, but acceptance, because she's different. She believes in the Lord. She, the shunning that she got from her family and different things, and she will zone out. She'd started zoning out because her family came whenever she was doing her MA, she was graduating. And she had been working for us, went through her extern program. She was fantastic until that point when her family came and she was, graduating. It brought back all of this stuff.
Yes.
And that went on in her life. But I can either look at it, this has been a blessing because, we sat and we talked and we got to know each other, and I said, Quinn, you've got to quit zoning out. all these scriptures, are you listening to them? You know, and, you know, she's one of the examples that where she was shunned, and the girls in the office, and she was, not remembering because of her family coming down, bringing back all these memories. And, but she's stepping up to the plate now. And, and like the therapy center I go to, they have scriptures on the wall as you walk out. And I said, okay, Quinn, which one are we going to take out with us as we walk through the door? And so, she is really coming back. And I think, as long as we're ready to walk through the door or listen or, or whatever, what you're teaching us, then, God loves us all.
That's right.
He really does.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Well, now, there's another issue that we have in the Christian world that we have to watch. And my question is, how did Jesus indicate that he does not want us stressed out doing his work? Look at verses 30 to 32. Okay, you want to read it?
Sure.
I can see no numbers.
You want Mark?
Mark 6,
Mark
6,
You want 30, what'd you say?
30 to 32.
Ain't no numbers, that's all. It just go on, like a book.
Okay. Can't say neither.
What?
Okay.
You
Then
got it
I
right
just
there in your
myself.
book.
Okay. Mark 6, 30.
Yes.
This is the King James Version, so. And the apostles gathered themselves together unto Jesus and told him all things, both what they had done and what they had taught.
Hold on a minute. You notice that? The disciples came back from that missionary journey Jesus sent them on and brought back a good report, including Judas. All right, go ahead now, next verse.
And he said unto them, come ye yourselves apart unto the desert place and rest awhile.
That's right. Said, come with me or yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest. God does not want you stressed out doing his work. See, now Dr. Knight will probably tell you quite frank that a lot of diseases are caused by stress. Stress can make you sick. And getting sick doing God's work does not bring any honor and glory to him. That's not the way he wants it. And so, no matter how busy you can be in God's work, Jesus is saying here, take it easy. Come apart and get some rest. I used to have trouble with that because when I went on vacation and the pastors in the area discovered I was there, they'd always ask me to preach. I had a hard time getting on vacation. I had to hide, not let anybody know that I was around then. And so, yes, Jesus told the disciples, it's time to rest now. After all that work we did, let's rest. Now the next verse. What did they do? Verse 32.
32. Okay. And they departed into a desert place by the ships privately. And
Yes. They went into desert places, actually it's a solitary place, yes. In other words, they went where nobody was. So they could not be disturbed. But now, the people found them. hard to hide when people talk about good works that you're doing, especially if you're doing something dealing with money or health. And so a big crowd followed. Paul, look at 34 to 42.
As Jesus came ashore, he saw the large crowd, and he had compassion on them, because they were like sheep without a shepherd. So he taught them many things. When it was already late, his disciples came to him and said, "This is an isolated place, and it is already very late. Send them away so that they can go into the surrounding countryside and villages and buy something for themselves to eat." But he answered them, "You give them something to eat." And they said, "Should we go and buy bread for 200 silver coins and give them to eat?" He said to them, "How many loaves do you have? Go and see." When they found out, they said, 5 and 2 fish. And then he directed them all to sit down in groups on the green grass. So they reclined in groups of hundreds and fifties. He took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and broke the loaves. He gave them to his disciples to serve the people, and he divided the 2 fish among them all. And they picked up the broken pieces and fish that were left over, 12 baskets full.
Yeah, one for each disciple. A basket for each disciple.
Yeah.
12 of them.
Yes.
Okay, there are a number of things I want to point out. First of all, notice that when Jesus prayed in verse 41, he looked up to heaven. The idea of bowing your head and closing your eyes was invented by the Catholic Church.
Amen.
For priests to have control of you, because when you bow your head or close your eyes, you become weak. Yes. First, come here. Let me show you something. Yeah. Okay. Look up to heaven. Okay. Close your eyes and bow your head. See that?
So the Catholic Church wanted to make them submissive to them.
Oh, yeah. That's right. So, yes, in the Bible, people prayed by looking up. Strong. Yeah. And then notice that Jesus was interested in providing for people. They got hungry. Jesus said to the disciples, "Feed them." They said, "Sounds like how we feed them. You see all these people there? And we only have a little bit of money here." Jesus said, "Well, what do you have?" 5 loaves and 2 fish. There's an interesting lesson in that when it comes to Jesus. Jesus will bless and use whatever you have. So it might look small, but once he blesses it, it will accomplish whatever he wants it to accomplish. It's an amazing thing. And then notice that Jesus believed in abundance. The word for prosperity in the Bible really means more than enough. And so he didn't only feed the 5,000 men, by the way, they didn't count the women and children. So a lot of people were there beside the men. Mm-hmm. But he had enough left over for the disciples to carry home some. Mm-hmm. He's superfluous, he gives more than you need. On that. The problem is that as human beings, we tend to ask God for the minimal thing. I've come to the conclusion that God likes you to set big goals. Goals that you cannot see how you can accomplish it. And so these disciples witnessed a miracle, and yet they were not impressed with Jesus. I want to show you that. They were not impressed with Jesus because, look at verses 45 to 50. Okay, Debbie, you want to read that one for us?
Immediately Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to Bethesda, while he dismissed the crowd. After leaving them, he went up on a mountainside to pray. Later that night, the boat was in the middle of the lake, and he was alone on the land. He saw his disciples straining at the oars, because the wind was against them. Shortly before dawn, he went out to them walking on the lake. He was about to pass by them, but when they saw him walking on the lake, they thought he was a ghost. They cried out because they all saw him and were terrified. Immediately he spoke to them and said, "Take courage, it is I, don't be afraid." Then he climbed into the boat with them, and the wind died down. They were completely amazed, for they had not understood about the loaves. Their hearts were hardened.
Oh,
When they had
wait a minute, hold on for
sorry.
The text says they did not understand about the loaves. Their hearts were hardened. Now, we have a bad idea about hardened. The Greek word that they use here really means they did not understand who he was. See, up to then, they did not understand that Jesus was God in human form. The disciples only realized who Jesus really was after the resurrection.
So up until that point, who did they think he was?
A prophet, somebody that God was using. See? But after the resurrection, boy, they got it. Yes. And so, imagine this. They saw Jesus walking on the lake, and they said they thought it was a ghost, and they got scared. Now that has always fascinated me, because a ghost is somebody you think is dead. So how come you're more scared of them when they're dead than when they're alive? I don't get.
Because they're supposed to be dead.
Okay. Yes. And Jesus told him, "Take courage," and I, "Don't be afraid." But notice, when he got into the boat, all of a sudden the wind stopped. So they now saw two additional miracles. Walking on water, getting in the water, and the wind stopped. But the text says they were amazed, but they had not understood about the loaves.
Isn't it true that we fear what we don't understand?
That's right. That's right. Yes. I've also discovered there's something about a miracle that can be scary. I recall when I was teaching at the college in Trinidad, there was a woman that people thought had a demon. And the students brought her for me to cast out this demon. So they brought her into my office. And before I could do the exorcism, the bell rang for the class to begin. So the students left me all alone in the room with this woman. And I said to the woman, In the name of Jesus, I command the demon to leave you. She fell down on the ground and began to squirm and scream. And I heard myself say, help, help. That's frightening thing. Yes. And so the disciples were scared.
Wait, so then what happened?
Well, the demon left.
Oh.
But I knew they had to leave, but I didn't expect that particular response. Yeah. When I was in Guyana was a place that was very superstitious about demons and that kind of stuff. And a man came to me and told me that his Indian wife had some demons, and he wanted to pray for me to cast them out. So I said to him, go home and open the Bible to Psalm 23 and pray about it, and everything will be all right. He came back to me in about 3 hours and told me that when he opened the Bible to Psalm 23, the demon threw out the page. So I said, that's not right. A demon can't do that unless you obey. You have to obey the demon to give him control over you. So I said, what did you do before that stuff? He said, the demon speaks in a male voice and asked him to go and buy some those white balls that you can use to. Yes. And the demon said, throw them in my mouth. And he threw them in the girl's mouth, and fire came from the girl's mouth and consumed them. So I said, okay, I had a big tent that I was preaching in at night. I said, bring the tent tonight. And I forgot the whole thing. So I did not remember about this girl until I was given the benediction, and I heard this person scream out and fall down. Then it dawned on me he brought the wife there. So I said to a deacon, take her to the back until I'm finished here. But we took her to the back, I dismissed the audience, and I began to walk towards her. She went into a kind of trance, and this male voice said, Pastor Wiggins, don't come any closer. Now, I must confess, I was worried. How did this demon know my name? So I began to walk, but a little more slowly. But I knew I got to stop walking because I can't obey him, see? If you obey him, you give him power over you. So I kept walking, and this voice said, I'm one of 12 Hindu spirits sent to protect this girl. And if you leave me alone, I will leave you alone. And I said, listen, I'm going to baptize this girl, and you're going to have to leave, so I'm finished with you, and I walked away. So baptism came up the following week, and I said to the ministers, put her in the pool last, in case the demon gives you any trouble. So they did that. On the way into the pool, she went into a trance again, and the male voice said, Jesus is too powerful for me, and left, and never gave any trouble after that. So, Jesus is powerful.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. But, there's a point there, you must not obey a demon. That gives him power over you. Yeah. Well, also,
Most people in the United States don't know what a demon is.
because you don't believe in them, you see. The demons only bother you to believe in them. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So in countries that are superstitious, you get a lot of that. Yeah. I was in Dominica. Dominica was another island that any country that is almost totally Catholic and poor, you have a lot of that stuff. And so I was preaching one night, and I said to the audience, if you will give your life to Jesus tonight, all that demonic activity and so on will automatically leave you. And so I asked all you folk who would like to have freedom, come forward. Well, they came forward, a lot of people came forward, but among them was a woman that I knew was a member of the church there for years. So I thought she had a testimony to give. So I called her up to the platform, and I said, what do you want to say? She said, Pastor, I have a jumbie. Jumbie was the name they gave it for demon. The jumbie was a demon. She said, I have a jumbie in my face. I was so upset. I had just finished telling people that if they became Christians, they could not have any trouble with the jumbies. And she's telling me after being a Christian for years, she has a jumbie in her face. So I took my hand, I slapped her. I said, come out! I said, the come out is for the jumbie, and the slap is for you. The next night she came and told me the jumbie was gone. I said, yes, he had to go. I told him to go on that. But now you see, she grew up in a situation in which they believe that you can have a jumbie in your face. In that same place, a woman said her dead husband used to come and make love to her every night. She wanted me to come and get rid of the dead husband. So I said, okay, let me go and see the stuff. So she lay down in bed and started behaving as if she was having sex. So I said, sister, I'm going to lay down in bed. That can't happen to me. So I lay down in bed, of course, nothing happened. I said, listen, now, at the time, I was having a little trouble with blood pressure, and the doctor had said to me, you need to make sure that you don't have too much salt or something. So salt was on my mind. So, so I said to her, sister, bring me some salt. And she brought some salt, and I went to the four corners of the bed, and I sprinkled the salt. In arcano logos, kaio logos, proston theon kai theos in logos. That was John 1, chapter 1 in Greek, but she didn't know that. And I said, okay, sister, it's all over now. Lie down and see what happens. So she lay down. Everything was okay. Because once I got the faith, you got victory. And that is the lesson that Jesus was about to teach the disciples. That faith was what worked. So I want you to look now at verses 53 to 56. Okay, Dr. Mike, you have that?
When they crossed over, they landed at Gennesaret.
Let's do 55.
Huh?
Let's have 55.
And anchor here. As soon as they got out of the boat, people recognized Jesus. They ran throughout that whole region and carried the sick on mats to wherever they heard he was, and wherever he went, into the villages, towns, or countryside. They placed the sick in the marketplace. They begged him to let them touch even the edge of his cloak, and all who touched it were healed.
That's right. Just touching the end of his cloak. They got healed. But notice the difference between that and when he went home and the people did not believe in him. Look at verse 5.
Chapter 5 and verse 5.
No, chapter 6, verse 5.
Chapter 6.
Okay, Doc, go ahead again.
He could not do any miracles there except lay his hands on a few sick people and heal them. He was amazed at their lack of faith.
That's right. I don't feel it. Now, they did not realize who Jesus was. And so as Christians, we have to understand who Jesus really is in order for our faith to increase and really become powerful. So let's look at who Jesus really was. After John discovered who Jesus really was, he began his whole gospel with that. So look at John chapter 1. And verses 1 to 3. Paul, when you get that, read that for us.
Verses 1 to 3. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was fully God. The Word was with God in the beginning. All things were created by him, and apart from him not one thing was created that has been created.
Oh, see, John said Jesus was not only God, but he was the one who did the creating. See, the one who made you was the one who saved you. Now, how do we know that this word was Jesus? Look at verse 14, Paul.
Now the Word became flesh and took up residence among us.
That's right.
We saw his glory, the glory of the one and only, full of grace and truth, who came from the Father.
That's right. The one who created you became flesh, human. But he never stopped being God. He had what we call in theology a theanthropic nature. Theos means God and anthropos means man. So Jesus is both God and man. And as God, he could grasp the hand of God, and as man, he could grasp the hand of man and form a bridge so man can come to him, to God. And that is who Jesus was and is. And as Christians, we need to recognize that power that is available to us as Christians by faith. Faith means you behave as if the thing
Already existed.
has already happened. Yes. No. That's not always easy because human beings tend to respond to their senses. So you look at something, you need money, you look at your bank account and it's zero. So what happens? You find yourself responding to the zero. But now faith says, Bible says in Hebrews 1 that faith is evidence of things not seen. So you don't have to see it. The problem I have discovered is that there are more miracles overseas than there are in the United States. And it's back to that idea that I told you about, that Americans value honesty above all things. So saying that you have something that you don't have, in the American mind, sounds like a lie.
Mm-hmm.
So that you sound that you're being dishonest. So I tell Americans there is a way around that. You can satisfy both your faith and your human idea about honesty and all that by saying, I've asked God for $1,000 and I have $1,000 even though it's not in the bank yet. See, by saying even though it's not in the bank yet, you satisfy the idea that you can't see it. But you express what Jesus said when you pray and believe you have it, and you get it. That's what faith is. It's a very powerful thing.
With our subconscious, we programmed it to believe that way, that we'll have it.
Yes.
So you've got to change the subconscious.
That's right. Yes.
And if you don't know what it is in the subconscious, how do you change it?
That's right, see? And that's just why in reality, you believe the person who says it more than you have to believe what the person says. Because, you see, again, your faith needs to be in the one who made the promise. Your faith has to be in this Jesus that is so powerful. See, if I come to Dr. Mike and Dr. Mike makes a prescription, I take it because I trust him. If I didn't trust him, I would say, forget that. You get the point?
Mm-hmm.
And so, if you trust this Jesus who died for you and who is God, and he says, all things are possible to those who believe, then you say, all right, that makes sense to me, but since you said it, since you say it, I'm going to behave as if it's true. And the as if is very powerful in the United States. If you behave as if the thing is true, your mind behaves as if it's true. Yes.
It's difficult to do sometimes.
Oh. Tell me.
That's right. And this is why sometimes the more education you have, the harder it is to exercise faith. As a matter of fact, after I got my doctorate, there was a time when I found my prayers were not being answered. I didn't get the result I wanted from people. Then it dawned on me that I had lost some of my faith because of my training at the doctoral level. And I had to make a conscious decision to get back there.
You have more faith in the books,
Yeah.
more faith in the education.
And research and that kind of stuff, you know. Yeah. Yes. And but Chris will tell you that I used to have so much faith. I used to go any place that said that people do not believe in Jesus over there, and I would say, send me there. And I had so much faith. He'll tell you, I used to order buses to take people to the beach to get baptized before I preached. Boy, but for about a year after I got my doctorate, that was a serious trouble.
So how did you get out of it?
Make a decision. I had to make say, you know what? All this education stuff is all right, but if Jesus said all things are possible to those who believe, then I'm going to have to start believing that again, and I'm going to behave as if I do. And he will tell you that when I was about to leave the college to come here, I said, you know what? I'm going to conduct some meetings to prove to these ministerial students that you can win souls anywhere. And people say, you cannot win souls near a college. People go, well, I did. Baptized over 100 of them. Yeah. My confidence in expecting people to respond and so on came back. And so I want to recommend this to you. Remember, the one who promised you was Jesus. Jesus, God in the flesh, did all this miraculous stuff. And in the presence of the disciples, he did it, and they had a hard time believing it because they didn't realize who he was. Once they discovered who he was, they changed and began to heal people by simply saying, get up and go home.
Well, they look at him as an uneducated prophet.
Yeah, he didn't go to seminary and kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
He wasn't in the temple, you know.
Yes.
But when you go to a place where people say, we don't believe in God,
They
they don't
get
have
the
any
worst.
faith. They have faith in the faith they don't believe in God.
Yeah, that's right.
So
Yeah.
how do you approach them?
They
How
get
do you
the worst.
convince them otherwise?
Well, it's interesting. You've got the be very good at that, to be quite frank with you. I don't always understand how it works because sometimes all I do is preach one sermon and people who didn't believe in God, suddenly start believing in God. I think my faith rubs off on them.
Contagious?
Yeah.
Because of who you are.
Yeah.
The faith.
That's the reason, Jesus was able to heal people just by walking amongst them.
That's right, yeah. Yes.
And they had that faith,
People caught it.
you know, I mean, from him, you know, they caught that.
Yes.
But your faith is contagious. And so it affects something in that person. It's already in that person.
Yeah, that's right.
It just activates.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And of course, another important thing was I never condemned them. See, if you condemn them, they close off. I recall once I went to preach for a week at a college, and I was supposed to start on Friday night. And Friday morning, a young lady met me on campus, and she said, "Oh, you're the great Pastor Wiggins." So I said, "I don't know about great." She said, "Yeah, I understand that you really get people to get baptized and all that, but you can't catch me." And I said to her, "Girl, you will have to beg me to baptize you." She was the night she came to me, she said, "I'm begging." So, also, the text of the Bible is very powerful. The Bible, Jesus said in the book of John, "My sheep hear my voice and they follow me." Yeah. God knows who his sheep are, and they follow. Jesus passed and saw these Peter and these fellows fishing and saying, "Follow me, I'm making fishers of men." And they followed him. They didn't argue or ask him, "Where are you going?"
How you plan to do it?
Huh?
I didn't ask him how he planned to do it.
Yeah, that's right. I just said, "Okay, I'll follow." Yeah. So it's a wonderful thing to. I said, put God to the test. He doesn't mind that. He likes to be proved. So let's do that. And I leave you with the understanding that believing in God and Jesus is a very powerful thing, and that they want the best for you. So you can ask for the best, even when it seems impossible. And that's why coming here makes me feel good to share this kind of stuff with you.
We appreciate it.
So may God bless you.
And God bless you.